G'day bird nerds, I'm Grant, I'm a bird nerd. This is the Bird Emergency. In this episode we're revisiting an earlier guest and a very popular member of Bird Nerd World here in Australia, Millie Formby, and we're getting an update on the Wing Threads flight around Australia. Millie's on her way around the country raising awareness of shorebirds in a microlight. Now, there's a crowdfunding campaign attached to this. Write down this link. It will take you to Millie's fundraising, thebirdemergency.com/support Millie. That being said, enjoy catching up with Millie Formby again. G'day, bird nerds. We're back again for the Bird Emergency. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. Can you see that behind me? That's the sky. And I've got that one there for us today because joining me for the second time, and I'm really happy to say, after another successful crowdfunding campaign to continue the flight around Australia, Millie Formby. Hi, Millie.
Hey, Grant. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, and I'm really pleased to have you back. Oh, hang on, I better put this up too because we're going, hey everyone, support Millie on her latest fundraising activity to continue the Wing Threads flight around Australia. Now let's quickly recap, Millie.
Yeah.
What's Wing Threads? What was the idea behind the flight, and where are you up to?
Yeah. So Wing Threads is a science communication initiative to foster stewardship of our wetlands by sharing the amazing journeys of our migratory shorebirds. And I'm a zoologist by training, but I'm also a microlight pilot and illustrator of the children's book, A Shorebird Flying Adventure. And I'm flying around Australia at the moment and visiting schools and libraries on the way to talk to kids about migratory shorebirds and connect them with their local wetland habitats. Yeah.
Let's start with the schools first.
Yeah.
How many have you been to already?
Yes, so I have so far flown from Perth in WA around the southern coast to Newcastle, and I visited 66 schools and reached over 4,000 students so far. Yeah.
And has there been a most frequently asked question among school kids?
Yeah, the kids are really fascinated by the plane. The two most common questions I get asked are, what happens if the engine stops? That's number one. And the second one is, how do you go to the toilet?
Now that's a very sort of 5 to 7 year old question, isn't it? That's what I would expect.
Yeah.
What's the answer to that one, Millie?
Adults are like, yes. So what are the answers? First answer, what happens if the engine stops? Then I'll glide to the ground. So the plane will continue to fly, but you'll just glide to the ground and you've got to look for a place to put it on the ground. The second question is I land somewhere and I go to the toilet. So my plane has an endurance of about 5 hours of flying time, but my endurance is about 2 or 3 hours. So I tend to plan my flights to be between 2 and 3 hours, and I'll stop and go to the toilet when I land.
Yeah, I think when we first spoke, you were thinking of, was it about 250 k's for each hop was what you were looking at? So has that planned out pretty well?
Yeah, pretty much. So most flights are around 100 to 200 nautical miles, which is, 200 to 400 kilometres, something like that. Yep.
Okay, well, let's take a step back because there'll probably be people this clip for the first time and won't have known the backstory. So let's just first say, what got you interested in the idea of promoting the flights, the migratory journeys that shorebirds make?
Yeah, sure. When I was studying zoology at Melbourne Uni, I was also working part-time as a tapestry weaver, and I learned about shorebirds actually through another artist we were working with, John Walsley. And through John's artwork, I ended up joining the Victorian Wader Studies group and started helping out with banding and flagging shorebirds. And And I finished my zoology degree and moved to Perth and started banding and flagging shorebirds in Broome as well. And I loved being part of this shorebird community of people from all throughout the flyway. You know, you meet people from countries as far away as Russia and China and you know, Alaska in the US. And all of these people are coming together to conserve these shorebirds and their habitat. The birds are bringing us together as a community. And I just think that's so special. And it really highlighted for me as well how our wetlands are they're like a chain with links in it. Each one of those wetlands is a link in the chain. And we need to protect each of those individual links for that chain to maintain its strength. And I think that's a really important message to share, you know, that looking after our wetlands at a local scale can actually have an impact on an international level. And it also opens the doorway into talking about how wetlands are important for us too. Like, we also rely on wetlands for our health and well-being as well. And I was like, well, how do we get this message out there? Because most people have never even heard about shorebirds, and a lot of them are in decline. Like, most of them are in decline. And I was racking my brain about, you know, how do we talk to people about shorebirds outside of those silos we create for ourselves with, you know, scientific communities sometimes. And I came up with this idea after talking to a mate at work about how his brother used to fly microlights. So I just got struck by this idea that I could learn to fly a microlight and follow the shorebirds on migration. And I went, you know, I could actually decide to do this if I want to. And I started going down that track. I had a flying lesson and fell in love with flying, got the flying bug real hard, and here I am.
So how did the genesis of the idea in a microlight come about, Millie? Were you already familiar with microlights, or did you think, oh, this would be a cool project? How will I do it? And then the microlight came into your mind.
So I had a friend at work at the University of WA when I was working there. He was telling me how his brother flew a microlight and how they wanted to fly around Australia together and raise money for Royal Flying Doctor Service. And I don't know, something about that must have stuck in my head, because the next day as I was driving to work, the idea just popped in my head out of nowhere. I could learn to fly a microlight and follow the shorebirds on migration to Siberia. And I went, oh, wow, this is a really big idea. I could actually do this if I want to. And I don't have any history of aviation in my family. Nobody else is a pilot. I never dreamt of being a pilot as a kid, nothing like that. So it's all purely come out from having that conversation with my mate at work and gone from there.
When we spoke before you took off on the first leg, I wasn't aware that you'd done a fundraising before for a flight to the tundra.
Yes.
Now, tell me about that. That's totally new to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when I started doing my flight training, I realised that I needed to get my own aircraft, and I was like, well, how the hell am I going to get the money for that? So I decided to crowdfund for the aircraft, and this is when I didn't even have my pilot licence yet, and I was telling people, you know, I'm going to fly to Siberia, because that's what the original plan is. Like, this flight around Australia is a stepping stone to that. So I wanted to test my pilot chops before I tried something big like that. And I was fundraising for a microlight aircraft. And you know what I find so amazing about that is I didn't even have my pilot license yet, and I still raised $18,500 off telling people about this idea. I just think that's pretty huge. So it wasn't enough to get my microlight, but it did certainly contribute to me being able to buy one a bit later.
It's pretty astounding, isn't it? This will be your third round of crowd. So you got the major chunk of the money you needed for the microlight on the first bit, and that plan to fly to Siberia to the tundra is still there.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about that probably in 2 or 3, maybe 2 years' time. Hey Millie. But then you had the first round of funding for this Wing Threads project, which has coincided with producing the book.
Yeah.
And now your third lot, where you were looking to raise $25,000, you got that. You upped it to $30,000. now you've beaten that. You've already beaten that. And there's 11 days to go, so you've got until the end of the month.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, Millie, that even with only, you're halfway now, roughly, I would imagine that 30,000 will easily get chewed up to get all the way around, especially the way things are rising in price day by day.
Yeah.
So what would you do with any overshoot, anything you've got left? That would go towards the Siberia trip, or maybe upgrading the aircraft?
At this stage, I haven't started planning any trip to Siberia. I think I really need to finish this trip before I decide what I'm going to do next. What I've really learned from this trip is there is a big emotional and physical toll from doing a project like this. I'm really going to need a break at the end of it. I thought it would take me 6 months to complete this trip, and it's going to be over a year by the time I get back to Perth. So that's really massive to start with. And what I'd really do with any additional funds, what I'm really passionate about, is creating more content. So about people who are working in conservation, particularly shorebird conservation. So one of the things I'm really passionate about is environmental messaging. And I think at the moment, the way we do environmental messaging, we often hear about the problem all the time, but we don't see examples of solutions and what people are doing to make a difference. And it's really difficult to know what action looks like or to have a vision of where we want to go without seeing examples of what people are doing. And I think it's really important to bring balance back to that narrative. It's very easy to feel powerless and hopeless when you only hear about the problem all the time, but you don't actually see evidence of people doing anything to change it. So I think the key for empowering people to become part of that change is to show them examples of what that looks like. And I'd really love to create a documentary series of examples of people doing exactly that.
It's really difficult, isn't it? Do you remember last time what you said to me when we brought this up?
Oh, I don't. Tell me.
Do you remember you were talking about how we always do the framing of conflict and whatnot? Yeah. And that shifted my perspective quite a lot in the way that I've been communicating. But then it's really, really, really hard, particularly when you see like the news from last week with the black cockatoos in Western Australia. It just seems that so many local planning decisions just never, ever take biodiversity and conservation into account, even though people, always purport to be following guidelines and everything. So it's difficult not to be forcefully critical and always be positive. And
I don't think I'm saying let's always be positive. I think that's also unhealthy, because it's really important. It's not let's stick our head in the sand and just focus on the good stuff. It's let's present the problem and be open and honest about the issues that we're facing, but let's also look at what people are doing to change it, because you need to have that balance. If you're just focusing on the problem, then we're going to dig ourselves into a hole where we just feel really hopeless and angry and all the rest of it. It's so important to hold those who are accountable for damage accountable, and also look at what people are doing to make a difference, so that those who may have an issue that doesn't have a solution yet can get ideas and inspiration from other people who have found ways that work, and maybe they can translate that into their field of work and what they want to change. If we're not doing that, then if we're not sharing that information, then it's going to be much harder for people to learn what are the things that work, what makes a difference, and how can we move things into doing things in a different way. So that's really where I'm at. And the other aspect of that I think is really key, and you've touched on it as well, those feelings of hopelessness and depression and anger, all those things are a part of like climate change and the loss of habitat and things. They're all part of ecological grief, and what we're experiencing is a form of collective trauma. And nobody's really having the conversation about the emotional impact of that loss of place and the loss of wild spaces and the importance of that to human health and well-being, especially mental health and well-being. So I think it's really important to have a conversation as well about how do we navigate that in a way that we can take care of ourselves mentally and physically so that we can show up and be able to participate in those actions that are going to create change.
I want to follow up on that in just a second, okay. But first, everyone, you probably all seen the Good Friday appeal and other telethons on TV. So we're pretending that we're on TV, and there it is. You can follow that handy little link that I've made up there. It's on the screen now. It'll stay up for the whole of the show. That's where you can go to donate to Millie's latest crowdfunding to get her the rest of the way around the country. You're talking about that echo grief, and I often reference doom scrolling on Twitter and whatnot, where most of the stories are bad and most of the examples of politicians, leaders, industrial giants are doing seems bad. Now, I really like that we can find people and focus on what's happening out there that's positive, and that's really what my show's about. Is that there's a bad story, but there's a really good story because people are so committed and they put in so much work and they donate so much of their life. And that's really what anyone who's working in conservation and ecology and surviving on post-grad projects. Yeah. You're not getting a Silicon Valley, founder's wage. And I really like that we're highlighting the good things that people are doing. But do you reckon just before we press go, you were telling me about how you can see from above the patchwork, the fragmentation of coastal habitats such as coastal heaths, which are so rare now in Australia anyway. Why don't we ever hold any of the individuals to account for making these bad decisions? We never attach any blame to the councillors or to the actual developers and whatnot. Do you think we need to start making people accountable? Because it's getting really, really, really desperate for so many habitats, and because of that, so many species.
Yeah, I think that's really a top-down issue. Like the way our systems are set up is really a systemic problem, I think, that you're talking about there. And the way our systems are set up at the moment, that it is pretty much in the favour of developers and things like that to be able to do those kinds of things. And I guess it requires a shift in who we're voting into those councils and larger, higher up in Parliament as well to create that change. So that's really huge. And I think, again, it does come back to how connected people are to their natural landscapes and the environment around them. If people don't understand why it's important to protect natural ecosystems around them and what are the things there that they'll cover and how are they a part of that? Because I think there is a disconnect between us and seeing ourselves as part of nature. Like the fact that we refer to it as nature implies that it's out there. It's not something that we're a part of. As long as that disconnect is there, I think it's going to be a challenge to convince people why it matters if we remove a small patch of remnant bushland, for example. So it is about sharing our own connections and our own passion for the world around us. What is it that gets you excited about going out and looking at some birds or discovering native bees in your backyard or having a close look at a flower? What does it bring you that is uplifting? There's a reason that you do this bird emergency podcast, because it comes from a place of passion. And when you speak about that passion, it's hard. Like I find whenever I meet somebody who's highly passionate and super excited about, check out this bird or look at this or whatever. It's so infectious. It's really hard not to go, okay, this person's obviously getting something out of this that brings them joy. I find that's much easier to sell people on than come and join me to angry and depressed about everything, if you know what I mean. So I think it's both. You need to have both. I'm not saying that one is more valid than the other. I'm saying there needs to be a balance.
Yeah, you definitely do that. Now, we hadn't planned this segue, so thanks very much for that one, Millie, because I wanted to ask you on the trip so far, and you can tell us how many days and nights you've been away, and we'll talk about a day in the life of Wing Threads in a minute. But have you had time to be able to do any bird watching for yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yes, a little bit. So when I travel, it varies how much time I'm in one place to the next because of the weather. So a few places I've been stuck for a few weeks at a time, and that was mainly around southwest Western Australia. So I got to do, quite a bit of birding around there, and also when I was crossing the Nullarbor as well, and around Port Augusta and that, we got out and did a bit of bird watching. So that was great. Yeah. And people know what I'm doing, so they offer to take me bird watching, and I'm like, yeah, of course I want to go. So,
all right. So what have been the highlights that you've seen through the lens of the binoculars on the trip?
Okay, I went to Chains Beach to look for the three big endemics there. So western whipbird, the noisy scrubbird, and western bristlebird. I got western bristlebird, but I only heard the other two. I did sit next to a termite mound for an hour waiting for the noisy scrub to cross the path, and it just never happened. Chirping wedgebill was a big highlight for me at the Port Augusta Arid Botanic Gardens, and Australasian bittern at Piccaninny Ponds in South Australia. My mate Keith and I had a pair of mulga parrots nuptial feeding a metre away from us at a bush on the Null. So, yeah, those have been some of the highlights so far. Mm.
Who took you scrub bird hunting?
Oh, you mean at Port Lincoln Park?
No, down in the...
Oh, that was Brad and Jill Kneebone for noisy scrubbird. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned mulga parrots. The first time I saw mulgas, and it was a small group, I just went, oh yeah. I didn't realise how infrequently you can get to see them in some parts of the country, and where I was, it was just like, oh yeah, there they are again. Oh yeah, okay,
yeah.
So Australasian bittern.
That was exciting for me because I'd only seen one through a thermal drone prior to that.
And what was it? What was it doing?
Oh, I went with Maureen Christie, who's the very well-known shorebird person in the southeast, South Australia there. She took me to Piccaninny Ponds and she said, we often flush them here, but now that I've told you that, we probably won't see one. And then we flushed one and we had really good views of it flying across the pond. So that was great.
Very cool. Now, we talked about this, about Fly Away Home, when we last spoke.
Yeah.
Have you had any experiences, birds tagging along with you while you've been flying?
I haven't had shorebirds, but I have had raptors. I often have raptors with me up there. I had one moment, I was flying to Esperance and I had a wedge-tailed eagle right beside me in the microlight. And that's pretty impressive, because I'm doing 55 knots. So this bird's flying at about 100 k's an hour beside my aircraft. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, a wedge-tailed eagle, and got excited. And then I went, oh, it's a wedge-tailed eagle. Got all nervous because I have friends who've been attacked in their aircraft by wedge-tailed eagles. But thankfully it wasn't too interested in me and eventually flew up. But it's amazing when you're right beside a bird in the air.
How big does a wedgie look from the cockpit of your microlight?
It's pretty huge. And seeing it like from above, seeing the birds from above, there's something else, like the pattern on their wings and everything. It's just magic. It doesn't get old at all. No. And
was it? Do you think? Let's anthropomorphize the eagle. Do you think it was checking you out, or was it like escorting you out of the territory, or what do you think was going on?
I think it was just checking me out. It was definitely flew up beside me and checked me out, and then went, all right, I'm just not interested, and flew off. Yeah.
And shorebirds. You're doing the flight to raise awareness of shorebirds.
Yep.
Have you seen many on the trip?
Oh, you mean from the air?
Or, from on land or from the air?
Obviously not for the first half of the trip. I did see some overwintering in Mandurah, the first part of my trip. But obviously, it's been their non-breeding season for most of it. So I didn't really start to see them until around October. So I did see a few around the Coorong when I was in South Australia, a lot in Warrnambool and, Stockyard Point in Victoria. Of course, I went to Werribee and Avalon Saltworks while I was in Melbourne. So there's quite a lot of, curly sandpipers and sharpies and redneck stints there. And as I've come up the coast, a lot obviously around the Hunter Estuary where I am now. But I did have a really special moment in Merimbula where I was getting a coffee and I went outside and there was a flock of maybe 40 bartail godwits, like right outside the cafe in the mangroves there. And I just got some really beautiful footage of them feeding and roosting. It was great. Mm.
Did you have a companion bird watching in Merimbula?
I didn't. I just took myself about. Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe Leo was out with you. Yeah.
I didn't realise Leo was in Merimbula, but I use a lot of his photos.
Yeah, hi Leo. That's right. We that's right. That's what I wanted to reference Leo because of his fantastic body of photos on Flickr.
Yeah.
And not only Leo, everybody who allows people to use their fantastic work to further the message.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And particularly Leo's painted snipes got a good run when I was helping to spread the word for Matt Herring, which
amazing work. Yeah.
Yeah, and another great fundraising campaign. Here we go. Stan's saying he knows Merimbula. Okay, that might be a story he can tell us later. Actually, Millie, did you go to Kangaroo Island? Did you actually? Yeah.
Yep, I went to Kangaroo Island. I did 3 schools over there, so that was really fun. Loved it. Yeah, Jean Turner, she came and picked me up at the ferry. She used to work for BirdLife, and introduced me to everyone.
And Stan is Kangaroo Island TV, and with one of the newspapers or something. Stan, did you cover Millie? Were you there? Let us know.
I don't think we caught up, Stan. Don't remember.
We'll find out in a minute.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a project like this, Millie, when you're being away for so long and 6 months already, and you think it's going to be a substantial amount longer, you talked about the sort of emotional toll that it can take on you. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Have you had? Do you have extreme highs and lows? Getting out of your normal routine can be difficult, and I would imagine being delayed because of weather must be difficult to cope with because you get in that get up, get ready, get prepared, take off, go to the next destination.
Yep.
What's been really challenging about it?
It's the logistics are the most challenging part. So it's pretty much me organising the school visits. I'm the liaison for the teacher and organising school visits. I'm also the pilot of the plane, so I'm organising flight planning. I need to contact people to organise hangarage and accommodation, let people know when I'm landing, and also just organising ground crew as well. So for the majority of this trip, I've just had people helping me leapfrog from one place to the next. So I fly somewhere and then somebody drives my car to me and then I give them a lift back or someone else gives them a lift home, or I've even had pilots pick me up and fly me back to my car or whatever, however it works. And, organising all of those things, having all those balls in the air, juggling all those things at once can be quite exhausting. And then you need to practice self-care on top of all of that. And you can be, you have a really exciting flight from one place to another. It's, wow, that was mind-blowing. And then you meet all these amazing people and you go birding and it's exciting. And then you're on your own for a week, you know what I mean? So it's you can get a bit lonely as well. So you're not with people that you know really all the time. You're often with people who you've only just met. And, you're not relaxing and being yourself in the same way that you do when you're around familiar folks. So all of that can be challenging.
Tell us how the ground crew works. I assumed that you had, and I thought this was how it was going to work, because you've got your vehicle towing a trailer that the microlight can go on. I just assumed that you had somebody, the same person or the same group of people driving the vehicle around with you, because you often see these kind of projects represented on TV shows in documentary form, and they've got the radio and they're keeping in. So how is your vehicle getting from place to place when you're flying from place to place? Do you have to fly somewhere, get the microlight safely stowed, hang it, and then do you have to go back and get the vehicle and then drive it? Do you have to get a lift back to where the vehicle is and then drive it up?
Yeah, it varies a bit. That's what I do sometimes. So, for example, the first flight leg I did, I flew to Bunbury. My friend Mary drove my car with the trailer to Bunbury. And then my mate Will, who's a pilot, picked Mary up and flew her home. And then Will, he just flew me back to my car for the next few flight legs. I've also had people come in pairs. So one person will drive my car, another person will drive their car, and then they drop my car off and drive themselves home. It varies. I've had people drive my car to me, then I drive them home in my car and drive myself back again. It's whatever works to get my car to me. And I only had a ground crew for a month between Esperance to Gawler because I was crossing the Nullarbor and I knew that wouldn't work, doing that leapfrog thing. So my mate Keith, who is a bird photographer and also an amazing pilot as well, he ground crewed for me from Esperance to Gawler for a month. So that was really fun, hanging out together because we just go birding all the time.
Yeah, and good on you, Keith. Now, Millie, we approached the last conversation we had, and obviously with this one in our telethon studio, about raising money. But I'm guessing you would be equally as interested in hearing from bird nerds or nature nuts anywhere along the rest of your journey who could help you out with ground crew, who could help you out with being able to drive the vehicle to the next point.
Yeah, so I've got ground crew up to Caboolture, possibly up to Rockhampton. But after that, if you'd like to be a ground crew person, once I get to Cairns, I'll need somebody who can stay with me from Cairns until Darwin, do that whole crossing, and then I'll put them on a plane and fly them back to wherever they want to go.
Hey, Millie, I just had a thought. What if I can get to Cairns and be your ground crew all the way to Darwin?
You can do that, Grant. Yeah.
Okay. Let's. And I'm dead serious. I'm really interested in.
Okay. You'd like to do that?
I'm really interested in that. When do you plan to be in Cairns?
It'll probably be late May, June.
Late May.
Late May.
Late May, June. Okay. All right. You might be getting. We might be getting some amazing bird emergency stuff coming out of northern Australia. No, I didn't even realise that was possible. If I had have known that was what you needed, I would have already been on several legs already, because I can, Millie. Now the thing that holds a lot of people back from doing projects like this, I reckon, is the fact that they have to go to work, right? Mm-hmm. How difficult has that been, or have you had any thoughts about not being in employment and what that might mean for the future? Or are you going to become a professional adventurer?
I don't know about a professional adventurer. I think I'll definitely become a professional storyteller because that's what I'm passionate about, is, connecting people with nature and telling stories around that. I think that's essential if we want to create change. People learn through story. But in terms of my career, I guess I have had to make sacrifices over the last few years because I've chosen to prioritize this. Like when you choose to do one thing, you're also choosing to not do another thing. And I have chosen to work part-time and house sit to save money. So I've house sat for the last 5 years in Newcastle so that I can afford to work part-time and not have to worry about having as much money. In fact, most of my money has gone into flying because aviation is not a cheap endeavour. And I've had a break. I've been working for BirdLife part-time over the last few years and working on this project as well. And I had a break here in Newcastle over Christmas holidays for 3 months, and I've worked for BirdLife casually during then too. So the Regent Honeyeater program is here in Newcastle. So I've been part of the team who have been tracking radio-tagged Regent Honeyeaters through the Tamil woodlands over the Christmas break, and that's just been the most amazing experience. And the reason I chose to do that is because I didn't want to use money that I'd raising for this project to live while I was staying here. So I've been supporting myself by working while I'm here. Yeah.
Can we go into some of the practicalities about what does it cost a week, or maybe if you average it out per day, to be away doing the wing threads thing?
Yep. Well, I calculated out to do the first half of the trip cost $25,000. So that's not too bad for 6 months when you think about it. And I thought that one of the biggest expenses would be accommodation. But what's really blown me away is that everywhere I go, people offer me a place to stay. They've never even met me before, And I've met all these amazing people and stayed with incredible people from the aviation and birding and education communities who've offered me places to stay along the way. Yeah, that's ended up being a bit of a non-issue, and the same thing is continuing to happen as I travel north. I've already got accommodation booked for most places with people, so that's incredible. So the most expensive thing has actually been vehicle maintenance, so making sure the car's serviced, and I've had a couple of things happen to the car because my car's an older four-wheel drive. It needed a bit of fixing. So it was unexpected, and maintaining the microlight as well with servicing and things like that. So fuel and vehicle maintenance have been the two major costs. But it costs about $750 to $1,000 a week so far.
Wow. That's That's pretty mad. It's not too bad, but for someone who hasn't had a vehicle since 2014, I'm thinking, God, what could I do with $1,000 a week? Oh my God. Yeah, that is wild.
It's pretty budget for a project like this, really. Yeah.
Because you haven't had to stay many dodgy places, I was going to ask you about. Tell us about the worst motel / caravan park that you've experienced in the country, but mostly it's been people's living rooms, has it, or spare bedrooms?
Yeah, or even like full-on decked-out bungalows, like at the back of their property. It's been lovely. I've stayed at some very nice places. One place I stayed at, they converted a dairy, on their farm into a little Airbnb apartment. It was so lovely, and stayed on the farm there. It was real nice, and I stayed with my cousin in Bermagui and things like that. So it's been nice.
So where was this decked out dairy? Was that in southwest Western Australia or Western Districts, Victoria?
No, it was near Strathalbyn in South Australia.
Oh, yeah. Strathalbyn. Very good.
Yeah.
And another place near Stan in relative terms.
Yeah, not too far. South Australia is so beautiful. It's totally underrated, though. I loved it.
Look, I know I'm jumping years ahead, but when you complete this trip, and you get to do the Tundra trip, which has really been the genesis of this whole idea with Shorebirds, is there another one bubbling below the surface where you're already thinking, oh, follow the Amazon River or the Congo or something?
No, there's really not. Like when I started all of this, it was to do the shorebird migration. If I managed to do that, that would be pretty phenomenal. I think at the moment I'm going, I don't know how possible that is just because of the geopolitical situation in China and Russia. That's pretty touch and go at the moment. So I don't know whether it would be very wise to go flying up there.
You could probably get to Korea, so that would probably be at least, Korea and Japan. You're almost there.
Almost there. Yeah. So anyway, there's so much planning, and obviously a lot of money involved in doing a flight like that. I'd also have to do a lot more flight training to do it. I'd need to get my private pilot license as a minimum. The aircraft would need upgrading as well. A lot of things that would be involved in doing something like this. That what I'm really focused on more than doing that flight at the moment is expanding on the documentary film that we're doing. So myself and the team at Remember the Wild were successful last year in getting funding from ABC TV and Doc Society and Screen Victoria to create a short 10-minute film about wing threads. And that's part of the Conservation Film Initiative. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that's coming out on ABC TV later this year. And we really want to use it as a stepping stone to either a larger documentary series or a feature-length documentary. So that's where my focus is on more at the moment.
Now, as part of the original project, the fundraising...
Yep, the one last year.
You had the book.
I did, yeah.
So tell us, just introduce the book again. Oh, that's right. You'll have it in your hands, won't you, now?
Yeah. Where have I put it, though, Grant? That's the question. Here it is. This is my book here. It's called A Shorebird Flying Adventure, and it came out in June last year through CSIRO Publishing. So if you'd like to buy it, go to CSIRO Publishing online. You can order a copy.
I'll create a link to that too for the page, Millie. How's it been going? Have the royalty checks been coming in, and you'll be buying a roller next week?
I hardly think that becoming a children's book illustrator is the way to become rich. I don't know how book sales are going, and I only get paid royalties once a year, so I won't find out until the middle of the year. But it's certainly been popular with teachers. And thank you. This is a cute cover. Yeah, so it's been popular with teachers, and it's certainly received a lot of positive feedback. And it was listed a few weeks ago as a notable for the Children's Book of the Year Awards. So we'll find out if it was shortlisted in a couple of weeks. Oh, next week, actually, in a week. Oh gosh, a week. Yeah.
Can we influence that? Can we go and vote or something on their website and say, no, that's people's choice, though? People's choice.
I don't know whether I don't think there's a people's choice, but up for a CBCA award. So that's really exciting.
I want to go back a little bit to the school visits, Millie. Now, we heard about the questions that the kids ask, but I'm really interested in what the long-term impact might be ongoing. How are you finding the teachers taking the whole block of content, and are you finding that they whether they just were totally unaware about Shorebirds before having some kind of contact with the Wing Threads project?
Yep. Oh, that's a really good question, because I've been doing post-incursion feedback surveys with teachers to answer those questions. So what I've found is that something like the majority of teachers, like 80% or something like that, don't really know anything about Shorebirds, like a little bit or nothing at all, pretty much. And that about 2/3 of the schools that I visit didn't have Shorebirds as part of their curriculum. And that after I do the school visits, 90% say that they're either somewhat likely, very likely, or very likely to include Shorebirds as part of their curriculum after the incursion. So that's huge. And my plan is to create an e-learning pack that will be available online for free for teachers that expands on a number of topics that are in the book. So teachers can just download all that information or show videos in class and have classroom activities ready to go about Shorebirds, because it is a bit of a steep learning curve for teachers to learn about Shorebirds to be able to bring them into the classroom in the first place. So if you can give them the resources that they need to do that, then they're much more likely to do that. So they are taking it on board, which is huge. Yeah.
And when you're planning, I love that you call them an incursion as well. Here comes Millie in a camo gear.
Yeah, I used to think of the word too, but that's the language that they use in schools. So I'm like, okay, it's an incursion. I'll call it an incursion, and I'm just speaking the education speak,
That's a weird jingo buzzword to use when we know about some of the things that go on in the US, I don't think we'd want to be calling it incursion. Anyway, that's what it is. When you're preparing to do a school visit for a particular location, Millie, do you check out which Thornbirds? We're talking about books. Which shorebirds might be in that location at certain times of the year, so you help the kids and the teachers can do a follow-up?
Yeah, sure do. I have a look at bird data, BirdLife's online database, and see where their local shorebird count areas are, and have a look at which birds are significant in those areas. So on bird data, you can look up whether a species is internationally or nationally significant, and there's a list of the species that are seen there. So I usually do a bit of that research and I bring that into the classroom as well, because it's really important, because actually a lot of the feedback I get from teachers is that once the kids have had the presentation, what they want to do is go to their local wetlands and see these birds in real life. So that's huge, that the kids actually want to engage and go and see these things. I think that's really key. It's very difficult for people to care about what they don't know about, and that's really my job, is to introduce people to these animals and create that connection. This is in your backyard. This is what you can do to help protect these birds, and this is the information you can share, and this is why it's important to protect those wetlands, and these are the things that the wetlands do for you as well. We're all part of this ecosystem together. So that's really the message.
Have you been able to do any sort of on-site talks or presentations as you've been going around, apart from schools? If you've been at a significant wetland or significant piece of coastline, have you been able to organise some kind of event to be on-site with people with their binoculars?
Yes, I have actually, in a couple of places. So in Victoria at Western Port Biosphere, we went to the local wetlands there. It's a big truck going past me.
I thought that was an A380 flying over there. That's what they sound like from here.
RAF is nearby as well. They do fly past in their planes sometimes. Yeah, so that was at Western Port Biosphere. We did that with the kids, which was fantastic. And also at Cornish College as well, which is another school not too far from Melbourne, over towards Bentley Way. And they have wetlands on their school, actually. And what I loved about that school, the kids all have their gumboots at school, outside their classrooms, and they do a wetlands walk 3 days a week. And they all go and walk around the wetlands and look at birds. So I went with them on one of their wetlands walks, and I took the telescope, and the kids hadn't used a telescope before, so they just thought that was the best thing ever.
Now, telescope/spotting scope, or telescope for stargazing?
No, spotting scope. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Just wanted to get that right, because I think certainly when I hear telescope, I think big astronomical offset thing, painted white.
Okay.
Featuring in observatories, but spotting scope. Cool.
Spotting scope. Yeah.
I'm really blown away at how many things you are cramming into this endeavour. So many people would just be concentrating on the flying, the getting from A to B, the vehicle maintenance. Without a regular ground crew, that means you've got to stock up for food and everything each time you go along. Has your dietary habit changed while you've been going along? Are you all noodles and trail mix and dehydrated packs or whatnot? I always envisaged that you would be doing a camping kind of trip, but it sounds like you haven't been doing much of that. It's mostly it's mostly been visiting the distant relatives each time you're turning up somewhere, and it's
relatives.
No, but it's like the relatives you don't know, that you correspond a little bit. They're really pleased to see you because, of course, they're birdie strangers rather than
the birding or aviation community put me up somewhere. And I have done a little bit of camping across the Nullarbor, but mostly, it has been people who have put me up. But to answer your question about food, like, I'm vegetarian, and I I'm gluten-free as well. So I've got a list of snacks that I fall back to all the time because it's difficult to get roadhouse food that fits those categories. So yeah, it is a bit tricky. It is a bit tricky doing that, and especially getting fresh food. So whenever I do have a car fridge and freezer for that reason, with the external battery setup. I did all that before that, and that's integral. Like when we were crossing the Nullarbor, I wouldn't have survived without that. We really needed to have our food with us. So otherwise, I'm living on bags of chips all the time, which is gets old.
No.
Yeah.
I would hope it would have been things like bags of banana chips and dates and dried apricot and
I do a bit of
stuff
trail
like
mix
that.
every now and again. I love things like just fresh fruit and veggies. I love these greenback protein bars. They're delicious, and I must admit I do love popcorn. So eating things like that, it's just. Those bidger snacks as well are real good. And just fresh fruit, of course. There's nothing like eating an apple or a banana or something.
So have you got one of those solar reflector cooker things that you can do popcorn in when you're out?
No, I don't. I've got a solar blanket for charging the battery up, but I don't have a popcorn maker, no.
How does...
I do popcorn in the trachea.
How efficient or / effective is the solar blanket?
Oh, I have only just bought it actually, so I haven't had to use it. But apparently, it charges up the battery in 7 hours. So, that's not too bad.
That's a good day where you've got a school visit, a bit of bird watching early in the morning.
I'm thinking it will be more up north, probably when I do Cairns to Darwin, Grant. So I'll be doing a lot more camping once we're up there. Yeah.
Have you been physically writing a journal or anything on the way?
I do. Yep, I keep a journal as well. Yep.
So that will be the basis of the book?
Oh, yeah. A few people ask me if I'm going to write a book. We'll see. Yep.
Well, if you've been keeping a journal, that makes perfect sense that gets turned into a book because, of course, you want to be able to release the documentary and at the same time do the book because then you've got to go and do your author book tour.
So
it's all part of the whole raising the awareness thing.
Yeah.
Now, while you've been cruising around at how many thousand feet are you generally cruising at, Millie?
Oh, it varies. So when I did the first half of the trip, so just to let everyone know what I've done, I'm flying from Perth to Newcastle, so that's 24 flight legs along the southern coast of Australia. And I left last year in June, so it was winter when I was travelling through southwest WA and across the Nullarbor, so it was pretty cold. So you don't really want to go up too high because it's freezing. So most of the time I'm below 5,000 feet. And the highest I went up was 9,500 feet, and that was to cross the Spencer Gulf from Whyalla to Port Pirie because I was going over water and I wanted to have plenty of glide range if the engine stopped. So, that's pretty much what I do. But when I was flying in the cold, you have to wear a lot of layers. I'd have a singlet and my thermals and a jumper, and then I had a heated vest with a battery pack in it that would heat up.
Yeah.
And then I had a puffer jacket on, plus my flying suit, neck warmer, 2 pairs of gloves with hand warmers in them, and I'd wear my Ugg boots and 2 pairs of socks as well. So I was wearing a lot of layers just to stay warm because I have been on flights where my toes have gone numb or my fingers have gone numb, and that's a safety issue because you can't feel foot pedals or fly very well. So, keeping warm is essential. But for the second half of the trip, it's not going to be as cold. So.
Certainly not. When you've been flying, at whatever altitude you choose for the terrain and for the temperature.
Yeah.
What has surprised you the most about what Australia looks like from the air?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. What has surprised me? I think what surprised me is that, when I was crossing the Nullarbor, for example, when you look at the landscape from above, it looks like a cryptogamic crust when you up close. you know how when you're out in the desert and you have all those little lichens and mosses all over the ground? That's what it looks like from above, aerially, with all the little shrubs and stuff. I'm like, oh, it's like the like the micro scaled up to the macro. It's really quite fascinating. But it's like the way the colours change and the vegetation and the landscape is just mesmerising. And the ocean along that southern coast is so blue. It's just breathtaking. It's so stunningly beautiful. It's just amazing watching how that coast changes as you travel.
Was there a piece of coastline so far that you've seen that really made your jaw drop?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely around the Bunda Cliffs there of the Great Australian Bight. That was just magic. Like the strata in the rocks, those lines of pale white and brown, and there's caves all in the strata and stuff. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I think that's the most magic flight I've done so far. And it was also whale season. So when I flew over the head of the Bight, there was easily, 50, 60 whales there with their calves at the head of the Bight. It was like whale soup. And it was just amazing. I've never seen so many whales together in my life. Amazing.
So with safety in mind and flying over water and all those issues, going along the Great Australian Bight, how far out to sea did you fly to get a good look at the cliffs, and did you ever come below ground level to have a good look, or is that just too scary?
I flew at 500 feet, so the cliffs themselves are 300 feet high. Yeah, how far off the coast was I flying? Not that far. I was within gliding range of the land, but yeah, you can still get a wonderful view of the coast at that height. Yeah.
And hang on, I'm just going to do the try and get these up full size. It's not going to work, is it? I just want to show people some of the photos. Here we go. So let's go through them.
Okay.
So these are all on Millie's website, and why isn't this? So these are on the Chuffed website. Oh, hang on.
Oh, yeah.
On here.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh, that's okay. That was at Eucla.
There we are. Yes, that's better.
So that's landing at Eucla Roadhouse. So I ended up staying at Eucla Roadhouse for a week, and Keith and I worked in the Roadhouse in exchange for our board, and we made friends with the managers. That was fun.
Now, was that pre-arranged, Millie, or did you turn up there? No, you turned up there and said, "Hey, we need somewhere to stay," and they said, "We need some people to flip some burgers and wipe down the tables."
Yeah, because they'd been really hit by COVID staff shortage, and they said, "How long are you going to be here?" And we said, "A week." And they rang us up the next morning and they said, "How would you like to work this week a few hours a day in exchange for your room?" And Keith overheard me on the phone and just went, "We'll do it. Yep, no worries." Change. Yeah, we just helped do the laundry, basically. It was fun.
Really cool. So tell us about this shot, Millie.
Yeah, this is flying from Kaiguna to Madura. It's over Cocklebiddy somewhere there, and that's the air height underneath me. And you'll notice that there's a little tiny cloud there. It was getting later in the morning, so the thermal activity was just starting for the day. So you don't get cloud until there's some thermal activity. That's what was happening there.
And
it was so smooth. That's me relaxing on the control frame and just enjoying the ride.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So that's the aircraft.
That's the aircraft. So that's taking off at the Nullarbor Roadhouse. Keith took that picture. He's a mad keen bird photographer. Keith Lightbody is who was with me. I'm sure people who are watching would know Keith's photography. He's a really well-known photographer.
What does the whole assembly weigh, Millie?
It's 240 kilos all up, so it's not very much. And the maximum takeoff weight is 450 kilos, so that includes passenger and fuel and anything else you want to take on board with you.
How many cameras have you got decked out on the structure when you're up in the air?
Yeah, so I have a 360 camera. That's how I get photos like this one. And that's on a pole that's sticking out the side of the cockpit. And then I have a GoPro, which you can actually see on the opposite wingtip there. Oh, no, that's actually my trim handle. But anyway, there's a GoPro on the opposite wingtip. And I also have my phone attached to one of the wings to live stream from.
Oh, very good.
Oh, yeah. That's me showing the kids how to draw shorebirds. So that's part of classroom activity, yeah.
Can you remember where that was or is?
This is at Cornish College, near Melbourne. One of the reasons I get kids to draw shorebirds is because the same features you look at to draw them are the same features you look at to identify a bird. So you can ask questions like, does this bird have a long beak or a short beak? What colour is it? What colour is its legs? Are they long legs or short legs? And it's really embodying for them, quite literally embodying what this bird is because they're drawing it. And they're much more likely to remember it. Yeah.
There we are. There's Millie at school.
That's me at Dalmain Primary School. That was the first primary school I ever visited, and I had the microlight with me, so the kids were heaps excited to see that.
So this was before you'd actually started the trip in Perth, was it?
Yeah.
They all look pretty happy to be in the shot, except this fella here who's got something in his eye. So,
maybe it's the fun.
And that's just magic, isn't it?
It's so beautiful. So this is at Border Village Roadhouse just before I took off and flew along the Great Australian Bight there. That's on the Nullarbor.
So that's from Eucla.
Yeah, Border Village is 5 k's up the road.
Yeah.
I landed at Eucla but took off at Border Village because the runway at Eucla was actually like a crust on top of soft mud. So it was quite muddy, and the mud there is salty, and I didn't want salty red mud all over my plane again.
No, you certainly don't want that getting in your bearing, your wheel bearings. No, for sure. It must be great to be out every morning, with a sunrise like that.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. I love the Nullarbor. It's so amazing. Yeah.
There we are. Another shot of Millie. So who are the sponsors we should be shouting out there on the plane, Millie?
Oh, okay. So on the front there is Lucky Bay Brewing in Esperance, Payments to Us, which do accounting for not-for-profits, and Alan EFB, and they do the flight navigation software. They provide me with a free subscription to their flight navigation software for this flight. Well, actually, they've done it for the past 5 years because they're lovely guys.
Now, I can't full screen that, unfortunately. But what's that on your lap with the tabs? Is that like a flight manual or something with tabs open?
No, it's a plastic pocket, like it's a velvet.
Oh, okay.
Pocket, and I put my flight planning info in there. So I've got drawings of each of the runway layouts of all the airfields I'm going to be flying over, plus the elevation and the radio frequencies I've got to change to as I fly from one area to the next. So if I need to do a landing somewhere other than where I planned, I've got the details there. It also has instructions for when I'm flying through different places. For example, when I flew up to Sydney, I flew a route called Victor 1, and you have to follow certain rules when you do that. Stay on this radio frequency and fly 2 nautical miles off the coast at 500 feet. And when you get to this point, you need to do a radio call. So I just put all those instructions there because once you're in the aircraft, you're focusing on flying the plane, and it's very difficult to remember all those other things. So you want to give your brain as little extra work to do as possible, basically.
What kind of radio is it that is it a multi-band thing, like it's got marine band and no. So is it UHF, VHF?
It's VHF, but just for aviation frequencies. Mm-hmm.
And you don't have another one with you so that you can, say there was a mishap and you had to land somewhere well short of where you were expecting to go, and you could get on the CB and go, breaker, any good buddy out there?
I carry a spare handheld VHF in the trike in case I land and, maybe something happens to my radio on board. I've got a spare one. I also have an EPIRB and a first aid kit and all that stuff with me on board. Yep. Now,
I hope by asking this question, I'm not jinxing you for anywhere else, but have you had any situation on this flight or any of your preparatory flights where where you thought you might need the EPIRB?
No, never.
No.
I like you'd have to be in a pretty serious situation for that to happen, like going down in water or something. Or landing somewhere remote as well. You'd probably need it. But no, I haven't had to use it. Yeah, my aircraft's got a Rotax 912 engine. It's one of the most reliable aircraft engines in the world. Yeah, it's good.
And what about general wear and tear on the craft mill? Does much have to be replaced? You've got lots of turnbuckles and those stays. I guess a lot of those things similar to what people have on off the beach and racing yachts. And stays get stressed and pulled and get slack and things like that. Have you had to replace much?
No, so it's mostly engine maintenance every 100 hours or every 12 months, whichever comes first. And then with the side wires and battens and things like that, keeping the aircraft clean is probably the other number one maintenance thing. And I guess that's the same for a boat as well, keeping the salt water off it. And I put inox on it a lot. Inox and lanolin, your best friends for maintaining those things. So the only thing I've had to have replaced is I had 3 of the battens in the wing replaced recently because there was some corrosion in there and the aluminium had cracked from the corrosion. But that's all I've had to have replaced. It is 5 years old and it has been hanging at Lake Macquarie, which is right next to the ocean. So it has been exposed to a bit of salt air. So I'm not surprised that after 5 years it did have a little bit of corrosion in some of the battens. But other than that, it's been okay. Yeah.
Is there a expected working life for a craft like yours, or do you just keep replacing bits as they need? Has that engine got another 5 to 10 years in it?
It depends on hours. It's more about hours. Yeah. So I think it's after 2,000 hours you have to do a complete overhaul for a Rotax engine. So I've only got just under 300 on mine, so she's still pretty. She's got a long way to go, and it'll take you a long time to put 2,000 hours on a trike as well. Yeah, it's not like you can just go fly it whenever you feel like it. It's a bit different to other aircraft because you got to choose, light winds and good conditions.
So there we are. Stan uses inox on his
It does leave residue. It's a bit sticky, yeah. Right. But inox is great, yeah.
Okay. You're up to $30,534 on this current crowdfunding. You've already upped it to $30,000, and you've smashed through it with with 11 days to go, so until the end of the month.
Yep.
Do you reckon there's a chance you might push it a bit further?
Oh, I don't know. I reckon we could probably get to 35, but it's so wonderful having people, resonate with the project and see what I'm trying to do and connect with it on that storytelling level. It's so amazing. It always blows me away. If there is any extra funding that goes in, it's going to be used to create further educational resources and content for people so that it's much easier for them to also spread the Shorebird word. That's really what it's all about, other than, if I've got over money is what I mean.
Yeah, it's not really left over. It's not going to be popping in your pocket for to go on a cruise next year. No,
it's all. My Wing Threads is a not-for-profit organisation, so anything that goes in will be used to create content and educational materials. Yeah, I'm not going to go on a cruise.
Now, I thought I might go through the donor list like we did last time, but I'm not going to this time. We might.
Yeah, that's fine.
We might talk about it if you really smash through the ceiling. But I do want to recount what you told me a bit earlier. That third of this 30,000 has come from one donation, and it's somebody who reached out to you. Do you want to tell us about that? Because I think this is why your project, the story, is really inspiring for anyone who's got a soft spot for little brown or grey nondescript birds.
Yes, for sure. This person emailed me and said they wanted to make a sizable donation and they didn't use credit cards, and so could they please have my bank details? And I just thought, oh yeah, they probably want to donate $1,000, something like that, because many people had. And then $10,000 dropped to my bank account, and I just couldn't believe it. I did get to talk to this person on the phone, and they told me that they had just been talking to someone the week before about how there was a need for more shorebird educational programs in Queensland. And then they discovered my project and donated the money. So that's really huge. Yeah.
Terrific. And Adventure Merchants in Sydney, big supporters, over $3,000 there. That was great. There's a couple of $1,000 in there, which are great. Hunter Bird Observers Club supporting you again, Millie, which...
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Which is great. And there's a couple of familiar names in the donors list, so good on you, one. And I'm pleased to see quite a few people from the Little Bird Emergency community have popped in there too, names that I know from the chat or from just being involved. And look, the first one, Spencer, Save Sunrise Glossies.
Yeah, he's wonderful, isn't he?
Yeah, it's great. Now we don't need to promote the person I'm going to bring up next, but because he's a legend in his own right.
Yes.
But how significant has the support and the sort of PR that you've been able to get, the exposure on the back of Costa and Gardening Australia sort of been for you? Did that sort of blow the awareness of the project like through the roof?
I don't know whether to say blow it through the roof, but it did increase it in a big way. I invited Costa last year as part of the crowdfunding campaign to come flying with me, and we live streamed it to his Facebook channel, and obviously that got a lot more exposure. It certainly increased the number of followers I have on Facebook and Instagram as well. And we did that live stream again this year twice, this time to Instagram and TikTok as well. So we've got different audiences from each of those live streams, and people from all over the world too. Like I've got followers from the US and all throughout the flyway as well. So Costa's been a huge part of promoting Wing Threads, and he's come on board as an ambassador. When I invited him last year, I thought it would just be like this one-off thing where I take him flying, but no, he's been there the whole way. It's just huge, and we try and catch up at different places as I'm flying around as well and do a live stream.
Yeah, it's really great to see that he's continued to support you along the way. Yeah, it's just great to see how it's gone from strength to strength, I reckon, Millie.
Yeah.
Now, do you consider yourself an adventurer now?
I guess so. I think I'd have to call myself an adventurer, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I was thinking about it today, or actually, no, yesterday, and I was trying to think which adventurer in the Australian experience that you might be most like, and I thought, no, I can't really see you in the Harry Butler mould or what was his name, Malcolm Douglas, or Mike and Mel and Leyland and Pat and Lorraine. The Leylands wouldn't have been anybody without Pat and Lorraine supporting them all the way around. But then I thought, the Bush Tucker Man.
Oh.
You're out there in the field, really doing the things, but contributing to the body of knowledge. And that's what I always thought when I was watching the Bush Tucker Man. Was he a friend of yours, a favourite of yours?
Honestly, I never watched the Bush Tucker Man. I never really watched I don't watch a lot of TV, to be honest. Sorry. People ask me, did I have TV people who influenced me growing up? And I didn't. It was more just growing up in the country and having a lot of wildlife around me that kind of got me into things. So I don't watch heaps of TV. Not that sort of stuff. When I was a kid, I was probably watching cartoons more than anything. I do love cartoons.
We'll get to that after we just acknowledge his comment. Now, Stan and knew Costa and his family, a legend. His uncle George is a legend. There you go, and they live down the road from Stan's parents. It's a small world, and but that's going to reinforce that stereotype that the next time you meet someone from America, they're going to ask you if they know such and such who moved to Australia from their town, because of course everyone knows everyone around the corner. How far advanced is your planning for the final stage of the journey, Millie? Like that top end part, which is going to be quite different to the terrain that you've been flying through and around now.
Yep.
Have you had to make any changes for the tropics?
Yes. So originally I was going to fly from Cairns across to Normanton, and then I was going to go like following the Gulf to like Burketown and Borroloola to Daly Waters. And then when I looked at Google Maps and saw how much longer it was going to take my ground crew to get to those places compared to me, I've had to adjust. So it only take me 2 hours to fly from Burketown to Borroloola, but it would take my car 13 hours to drive there, for example. And that's just not going to work because I rely on my ground crew to bring me fuel. So the microlight runs on premium unleaded, and most airfields don't have what we call MOGAS as opposed to avgas. And so it'd be better if my ground crew could get to me. Also, if something goes wrong, it's just better if someone can get to me and bring, our clothes and food and all the rest of it there as well. I've decided to go from Normanton. I'll fly inland now to Mount Isa, and then we'll basically follow the road to Tennant Creek and then to Daly Waters and up through Catherine to Darwin that way. So I'll try and do some flying, though, around the Gulf. I think I'll do a couple of out trips, just joy flights on my own just to check out that landscape because it will be absolutely beautiful.
Or you need to organise people to do a fuel drop in advance to drop some 44-gallon drums and a hand pump.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Could possibly do that. I can run the microlight on avgas, so it just means you have to service the engine more regularly, but it's just safer, I'm on my own with this tiny aircraft. It's better if I have people who can get to me, so it's all good.
Where are those blokes from All for Adventure? They're always driving through there. They could put a couple. Oh, yeah.
It's a bit hard with the microlight trailer to expect. Yeah, it's not a full drive trailer. I don't think it can manage on all those corrugated roads. Yeah, it's better if I do it this way, I think.
Yeah, but maybe there's some roads you can take up to the Gulf and do some trips up there rather than an east-west road around the Gulf. You can probably get up there to have a look. Can't you?
Totally. Yeah. I think it'd be easier. Like if I'm at Daly Waters or something, we can go flying from Daly Waters up to the Gulf and have a look around and then come back to Daly Waters. Like that's,
Very
I'll just do that. Yeah.
Very amazing. Very amazing.
Yeah.
Millie, I am just more than astounded at what you've been doing and, how much you've crammed in to this project.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
So I think you said 66 schools already, is that right?
That's right, yep.
And you've got a plan to go to 100.
At least, minimum of 100 is my goal, but I think we'll manage that pretty easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Has any school knocked you back for a visit?
I have, actually, because I don't think they realised it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I had a school in Victoria.
They said, we're busy that day. Can you put, but we'll do it next semester. Yeah,
they did. They said, I said, I'm in your area. Would you still, what day would work for you for a school visit? And they said, thank you, but we're pretty full for this term. And they just said no. And then my friend Jackie, who wrote the book, she's the one who told them about it in the first place. She said to them, why did you knock back the visit? And they said, but we can do it again later in the year, can't we? And she went, no, she's gone. She's flown through. That was it. That was your opportunity. And they were like, oh, no, we didn't realise. So, that's the only reason I've been knocked back.
And how about, I remember I joked about this when we were talking about it last time and maybe that local TV and radio would hear that you're coming and would arrive at the airfield to get a shot of you coming in.
Yeah.
Have you had support from local media and have you been getting, have you been in the local ABC studios a lot talking about the trip?
Yeah, quite a bit. So as I've travelled around, I've had lots of local newspapers, local radio as well, catching up with me. Also Sammy J, from ABC Breakfast in Melbourne. I took him on one of the flight legs, so he joined me from Barwon Heads to Tyab, and we live streamed that and chatted about everything on the live stream. So you can go to my YouTube channel if you want to watch that chat with Sammy J. It was very funny, as you would expect from Sammy. I was so embarrassed because after we landed at Tyab, there was an aircraft in front of me that got bogged in the mud, and I had to get out and spin the aircraft around with Sammy still sitting in the back. And when I went to get back in, he put his hand up to give me a high five, and I didn't notice, and I left him hanging, and I didn't realise I left Sammy J hanging for a high five until I watched the video later on. But so I've had lots of people on radio, and of course Costa's put me in touch with some of his radio contacts too, like Richard Glover in Sydney and people like that. So yeah, the media coverage has been great.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Now, Millie, I grew up down near Tyab and played junior footy against Tyab. Yeah. And I can tell you that whenever we played footy against Tyab, it always rained. Oh, their oval was a mud heap and it stunk. Yeah. And I could understand why Tyab's jersey was just all maroon. You didn't want any stripes or patterns because you'd never see them. Yeah, and Tyab was very stinky. So I'm not surprised that it was muddy for that one. There we go. Stan didn't know that you were on Kangaroo Island.
I was a couple of nights. Yeah.
I probably should have done a better job of keeping up to where you were, and I could have told Stan because.
Yeah, it's all your fault, Grant.
That's right. It is all my fault. I'm really sorry about that, Stan. Please forgive me. Yeah. All right, Millie. I reckon we've gone about as far as we can. I'm already starting to look at I'm looking at my whiteboard up there and thinking late April, May, getting to Cairns. Yeah. I reckon it can be done. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, let's keep it on the list. And, if there's anyone else who wants to join us too, I wouldn't say no to having 2 people for that stretch. Yeah. Yeah,
and that would be the real hard yakka stretch, I think, too, from a support crew kind of standpoint, and have to definitely pack the swag, I would be thinking. So,
yeah, need the swag, and it might be a little bit of heavy lifting because I don't think there's hangers at some of those airstrips, so you'll have to take the wing off the microlight and put it on the car.
Yeah. Have you got a like a hand winch and things like that in the? No. Okay. So it might need to get a sponsor for a hand winch or two for up that part of the world.
I've got a winch in the trailer for pulling the base in, but the wing we just lift it on top of the roof rack.
Yeah. And
I can't lift it by myself. Some hang glider pilots can, but they're a lot bigger and stronger than me.
And, of course, you've been missing all your sessions at the gym recently, so you haven't been able to bulk up.
I do get in the gym because it is important to stay fit with stuff like that. But still, the wing weighs 58 kilos, so it's not like I'm not much heavier than that myself. So it's like lifting my own body weight on top of the car. So that's a fair effort. Yeah.
Now, I can't remember if I asked you this last time. I think I wanted to just save this up for after you'd done some of the journey. So, Millie, while you're up there, contemplating life at the same time as concentrating hard on being a pilot, but then being away and mentioning that loneliness can be a bit of an issue when you're away, what have you learned about yourself on the Wing Threads journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. I've learned a lot about my limits in terms of not just physically but emotionally. How much am I capable of getting done in a week? What's the point where I need to learn how to say no? And I've learned a lot about boundaries and, having to liaise with people and learning when to say no, learning how to stop and rest and take care of myself. And I've also learned a lot about, what do I need to feel safe and secure in my world and to be emotionally well, basically. So I have a much better idea about those things. I suppose part of that comes from, like, the last 5-6 years, I've been living nomadically. I've been house sitting. I haven't had a permanent home. I've been living pretty minimally as well. and I don't have a stable base, and I can see how that's had an impact on me. And I'm really looking forward to getting back to Perth and being able to give myself that stability, that place where I can come back to all the time and recharge and then go out again, because I am quite introverted. I'd probably describe myself as an ambivert, because I love spending time with people and talking about birds and stuff like that, but I also need my alone time to recharge, and not having that stable base where I can go back and do that all the time is difficult for me.
It's nice to be able to get in your room and shut the door, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, and for me, recharging is like reading a book or listening to music or listening to an audiobook and knitting or something like that, And I do love time on my own as much as I love spending time with people. Yeah.
Can I just extend what you were just mentioning a bit, Millie? When you were mentioning boundaries, are they your boundaries or other people's boundaries?
Oh, my own. I mean my own. When I'm on the road, I often have people wanting me to come birding with us or come and give a talk here. Can you fit in another school, and can you do this and can you do that? There's a lot of expectations on you to be available, and at some point you have to say, I would love to be able to do that, but I really need to rest. I need to take care of myself, and you have to learn how to say no. And for me, I have a bit of a history of being a people pleaser. I find it quite difficult to do that. So I'm having to understand that it's all right for me to prioritize my own needs and over other people's, because no one's going to do that for me except for myself. So it is definitely that personal learning journey on the way as well, definitely.
Was that really, really difficult to recognise that, and then once you recognise it, to actually start saying no? And I might, just before you answer, I'm surprised that people expect you to drop everything to do another talk or come to another place to do a presentation when they had months to hit you up beforehand, didn't they? So
I don't know whether it's so much that other people expect me to. What I've found is that people are generally respectful and understanding of that. It's more me. It's more me learning that it's okay for me to do that, and that people aren't going to, get upset with me if I say no. So that's been my journey. Yeah.
Do you reckon that'll make the next one easier to do? Now that you now that you're hard ass, Millie.
Oh, I don't think I'm a hard ass by any means. I still feel uncomfortable doing it. It's just that I will do it and feel uncomfortable. So that's been part of it as well. You're learning that you are capable of experiencing discomfort, and also learning that people are understanding, and the people who do get upset with you if you say no, they're ones that you probably don't really want to, people don't respect your boundaries and want to, understand that, you've got to take care of yourself and things like that. Maybe they're people that you probably don't want to build stronger relationships with, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. But also learned about, I'm capable of a lot more than what I thought I was, especially in terms of piloting and the flight planning and whenever you take off on a flight into a place that you've never been before, there's always some fear around that. That's scary, but it's also really exciting. And when you do it, you go, yeah, that was awesome. You feel like a total boss. So that's definitely grown my confidence as well. And I know when I first took off in Perth, I was so scared about, going into places I've never flown before. And now I find myself going, yep, I know I can handle this. I'll work it out. It's fine. So you definitely shift in understanding what your capabilities are. Yeah.
I love that the story for everywhere you've been, wherever you've landed, people have been supportive, generous, welcoming, really interested in the project. Think of the impact that you've had on the students at those 66 schools already and their teachers, and that'll be a lifelong, lasting impact. When those kids are my age, they'll be telling their children or grandchildren or nephews or nieces about Microlight Millie, and I'm sure they will. I can think back to primary school, some events that, impacted me and stayed with me, from school. I'm sure that will happen. And, I don't like throwing words around like heroes or whatnot, but Millie, you're a dead set champion for conservation, for the really, it's a critical issue, shorebird habitat. And
It is, yeah.
And not only for Australia, but for some of the countries we've mentioned on the flyway, for development in China, for Korea, places like Thailand, Peninsula Malaysia. We've talked to people about Singapore. It's a stopping off place for so many birds along the way. Yeah. Hopefully, I hope people are picking this up in other parts of the world and thinking about doing similar things. Hello, Anna Paquin. That movie is still inspiring people.
It is all the time, yeah.
Yeah. Mate, look, I might send an email to Anna Paquin today and ask. I probably will, actually, Millie. I've got one more question before we round off from the bird emergency, and it's because something you said. What do you listen to? Actually, it's two questions. Can you listen to music while you're flying, or do you have to be listening to the tone of the engine instead? But if you are listening to music, what's your jam?
My jam. I don't listen to music while I fly. I am on the radio. You're listening out for other pilots and stuff. Some pilots do have Bluetooth headsets that allow them to use music, and if a radio call comes through,
it interrupts it. Yeah.
But mine doesn't do that. But I love just being up there, and it sounds weird, but listening to the engine as a pilot and just looking around. I'm all about that. Plus, I've got the live stream camera on, and I'm talking to my peeps who are watching as I'm flying around. Yeah.
I wonder if we can organise it.
Yeah.
I think we can. Actually, I know we can. I know we can organise it, that if I book something up with you, that maybe we can stream. You can stream to you can stream to your YouTube and Facebook and with me. But let's organise that at some stage.
You could host the chat, because I can't actually do the chat while I'm flying.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll be able to. Can you hear us while we're doing it? No, so you'll have to just shout, "I'm going over such and such estuary now," and I can get the map. And, okay. And
I have a microphone in my ear, and I might be able to set it up, Grant, so that
well, we can try it out and see what happens.
Earpiece in, I could. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's give it a try. I'm pretty sure that the Riot Squad, and that's all the commenters here. Millie, do you know why they're called the Riot Squad?
What's that?
What's the group of kookaburras called?
Oh, okay. I don't know actually what a collective noun for kookaburras is.
It's a riot.
It's a riot. Okay, well there you go. Yeah.
So I'm sure the Riot Squad might enjoy that. And hey, we might.
I think I've learned something today.
Now, I'm pretty impressed that Bird Nerdologist here, Millie, wasn't up on the Riot Squad nomenclature.
Not. No.
Well, Millie, it's been great to catch up with you again. I'm so glad we haven't had to do much spruiking about this latest bout of crowdfunding, because you've already made it. But that means you're just icing on the cake. The birdemergency.com/support Millie will take you straight to up to Millie's Chuff page, and you can donate, and there's a bunch of perks. But of course, you're not donating to Millie for a perk. You're donating to Millie to get the job done.
Pretty much, yeah. It'll go towards visiting the schools and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
No. Terrific. And look, I've said it before. I think it's one of the greatest conservation awareness expeditions that I've seen, and particularly for the birds that don't get the attention, because most people never see any, or they're not aware that they've even seen them.
That's right.
And they're not flashy, and they're not. Yeah, good on you.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're a legend. You're a legend, Millie.
Oh, well, I hope you can come join me up north. That'd be fun.
We're definitely going to talk about that shortly. And you give me some expected dates, and I'll make some plans. I only really need to know when you're planning to leave, and I'll.
You'll get there.
And then I'll just have to work out the monthly commitments I need to make for the bird emergency community as we're going along.
Oh, good. Yeah. Sounds awesome.
Great stuff, Millie. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Millie. And for the live bird emergency, it's tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bruce Richardson talking about his big year and his books. And he did message me today and tell me that he's well enough to speak, unlike last week. So, yeah, Bruce tomorrow, and then members only on Wednesday. But I'm altering the time, everyone. We're bringing it an hour earlier because a special guest who will be coming to us from the US, it's too late to do it start at 1, so we'll be doing it at midday or 11. I'll just check that out. It's going to be earlier. But we're going to talk about something that she posted on Twitter today. If certain birds were different public figures, which would be which? Like, what bird would be Boris Johnson? You know? So we're going to have a bit of fun with that. Think about those kind of things. Yeah. Which bird would be Millie? Actually, now I'm on a roll. Which bird would be Costa?
Which bird would be Costa? Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good one.
Like a tawny frogmouth or something like that.
I reckon we've got until Wednesday to think about that. But so we're going to have a bit of fun with an interview in that, but it's members only. So thebirdemergency.com/join, and by member I mean anyone who's made a contribution along the way. I'm not only for the members; it's for the supporters. But not everyone wants to join something, do they, Millie?
No.
You can be in the gang, but you don't have to join. That's how it is. Millie, thanks again. Been great. I'm really looking forward to watching you do the second half, whether I'm in it or not. Should be great.
Awesome.
And Bird Nerds, we'll see you later. Thanks to the Riot Squad. This has been the Bird Emergency. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. Hang on, have I got it the right way? No, never the right way. That's Millie. She's a pilot. She's a zoologist. She's an adventurer. And she's like an author and a public speaker as well. Millie's everything.
All of the things.
That's right.
And a bird nerd.
That's right. thebirdemergency.com/support Millie. Make a contribution to Wing Threads. Just do it. Hey, bird nerds, just bumping in to let you know something new. You can now support what I'm doing on the Bird Emergency and officially join the community and get some members only or supporter content. thebirdemergency.com/support. Bye, everyone.
Bye.